I never thought a single phone call could change the course of my life. For 8 months, I had been scrubbing the same mahogany tables, polishing the same floors, and folding napkins in a mansion that was never mine. My name is Emily Parker. I'm 34 years old, a single mother, and for most of my adult life, I've been invisible. At least that's how the world treated me. That Tuesday started like any other. Dylan Smith, my boss, was supposed to be out on business, leaving the mansion as silent as a church. I had my headphones in, humming to a tune that reminded me of my father wiping the long dining table until I could see my reflection in the wood. It was the kind of silence I had grown used to until the landline started ringing. At first, I ignored it. Answering phones wasn't in my job description, and Dylan was the kind of man who guarded his privacy with his life. But it kept ringing. 10 times. 15. The shrill sound gnawed at my nerves until I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled off my gloves and picked up the receiver, trying to sound as professional as I could. Smith Residence, good morning. The man on the other end didn't speak English. He spoke Arabic, my father's tongue, the language I grew up hearing in lullabies and family prayers. My heart raced, but my mouth answered before my brain could stop it. Mr. Dillon is not available right now. May I help you? There was a pause. Then the man said his name, Ahmed Al-Rashid, a billionaire investor from Dubai with a $50 million proposal. The kind of deal that could make or break a man like Dillon. And there I was, a woman in a cleaner's uniform, casually writing down details that could decide the future of an empire. What I didn't know was that Dillon had come home early that morning. He stood in the hallway listening, watching. For months, I'd been nothing more than background noise to him, a pair of hands keeping his glass walls spotless. But in that moment, I became someone else. When I turned around and saw him standing there, my heart nearly leapt out of my chest. He didn't yell. He didn't fire me. He just stared as if I had peeled off a mask and revealed a stranger he never knew existed. Emily, you speak Arabic? He finally asked. I tried to downplay it. I told him it was just the basics. But he wasn't stupid. He had heard me. He knew the difference between a tourist's phrases and the kind of fluency that came from years of study, from pain, from a lifetime of carrying two worlds in one body. I admitted the truth in pieces, that I studied linguistics at the University of Miami, that I spoke 5 languages fluently, that I had once dreamed of being a cultural consultant, maybe even a diplomat. And then I told him why those dreams had collapsed. Because no matter how many languages I spoke, no matter how good my grades were when I walked into interviews, I was never the right fit. I was too Latina, too female, too poor, too much of a reminder that some people didn't belong in glass towers. So I scrubbed floors instead. When I said those words, I expected pity or dismissal. But Dylan surprised me. He didn't fire me. He didn't laugh. He said something I'll never forget. Emily, you just saved one of the biggest deals of my career. You're coming with me tomorrow as my consultant. I should have felt triumphant, but instead, I felt my chest tighten. I had spent years hiding my true self, burying it under uniforms and silence. And suddenly the mask was gone. The world was about to see me, not the cleaning lady, but the woman who had survived betrayal, poverty, and every locked door she'd ever knocked on. I didn't know it then, but that phone call was only the beginning. It would lead me into rooms I was never meant to enter, into secrets I was never supposed to hear, and into the arms of a man I never thought would see me as anything more than invisible. But every secret has a price. And the deeper I stepped into his world, the closer I came to uncovering the truth that betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the people you've risked everything to trust. Dylan didn't waste a second. The very next morning, I found myself standing in front of a floor-to-ceiling mirror, no longer in my faded cleaning uniform, but in a navy blue suit he had sent up in a box with the tag still hanging. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me, hair pinned neatly, lips glossed, eyes wide with disbelief. My hands trembled as I buttoned the jacket, and all I could think about was my mother's voice from years ago. Don't dream too big, Emily. Life will only break your heart harder. But here I was, walking beside a millionaire into a downtown skyscraper, the weight of his trust on my shoulders. Inside the conference room, the air was thick with the scent of expensive cologne and guarded ambition. Men in tailored suits leaned back in leather chairs, their Arabic flowing quick and sharp, their voices threaded with suspicion. Dylan greeted them in English, polite but formal, and then gestured toward me. "This is Emily. She'll be joining us." The room fell silent. Their eyes scanned me, my brown skin, my accent, when I introduced myself in flawless Arabic, the suit that fit too perfectly for someone who had once scrubbed their marble floors. I could feel the unspoken question hanging in the air. Who is she really? The negotiation began tense, every phrase layered with meaning. I translated, but not just the words. I carried the weight of their culture, their pride, their hidden warnings. When they spoke in coded proverbs, I countered with metaphors of my own, earning surprised nods. When they tested Dylan with subtle insults, I softened them in translation, giving him space to breathe. For the first time in years, I felt alive. Not invisible, not background noise, but necessary. Hours later, when the deal was sealed with handshakes and reluctant smiles, Dylan pulled me aside. His voice was low, almost reverent. "You saved me again." I should have felt only pride, but beneath it all simmered something darker, anger. Not at him, but at the world that had buried me for so long. I had been here all along with this knowledge, these skills, this fire inside me. Yet it took an accident, a phone call, for anyone to notice. That night back at the mansion, Dylan surprised me with dinner. Just the two of us in the sprawling dining hall, where I had polished silverware and dusted chandeliers countless times. But tonight, I wasn't serving plates. I was seated at the table staring at crystal glasses filled with red wine I couldn't bring myself to drink. He asked me questions no one else had cared to ask about my father, about my childhood, about the years I spent juggling books and night shifts. And slowly I told him. I told him how my father, a cab driver, had been cheated by a company that refused to pay his insurance claim after a crash left him broken and jobless. I told him how my mother worked 3 jobs, how I carried Miguel on my hip while trying to memorize legal codes in the dark. I told him about Diego, the man who promised me forever and left when forever demanded sacrifice. Dylan didn't interrupt. He didn't pity me. He listened, his eyes fixed on mine like every word mattered. And that scared me more than anything, because I could feel something shifting between us, something fragile and dangerous. He wasn't just my employer anymore. He was a man who saw me not just the cleaner, not just the consultant, but Emily. And a part of me longed for that gaze, longed for the warmth it stirred inside me. But another part whispered that I was stepping into a fire I couldn't control. The whispers turned into a storm the next day, when the mansion staff started treating me differently. Whispers behind my back. Cold stares. A housekeeper I had once eaten lunch beside now avoided me like I was poison. To them, I wasn't one of them anymore. I wasn't invisible. And that in their eyes was betrayal. I tried to shrug it off. But betrayal, I knew too well, cuts deepest when it comes from those who once stood beside you. Weeks passed, and I became Dylan's shadow in every meeting, every deal. Together we closed contracts worth more than I could have ever imagined. Yet with every victory, I felt the lines blur between work and something more, between duty and desire. And when one evening he brushed my hand as we reached for the same document, the silence that followed was heavier than any courtroom. He pulled away first. "This can't happen," he muttered almost to himself. But his eyes told another story. And mine, though I tried to hide it, betrayed me too. I couldn't sleep that night. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your skin until it feels unbearable. I walked down to the kitchen, hoping tea would calm the storm in my chest, but when I pushed the door open, I froze. Dylan was there, sitting at the counter with a glass of whiskey, his tie undone, his face buried in his hands. He looked nothing like the man the world saw, the untouchable millionaire with unshakable confidence. He looked broken, haunted. "You should be asleep," he said without looking up. "So should you," I whispered back, stepping into the room. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he lifted his head, his eyes bloodshot but steady. "Emily, you don't understand what you've done to me. I built my life on walls, money, contracts, power. But you—" He shook his head, exhaling a bitter laugh. "You see right through it." I wanted to tell him I didn't ask for this, that I hadn't planned for my life to crash into his. But my throat tightened. Because the truth was, I had begun to crave it, the way he looked at me, the way he trusted me when no one else did, the way he made me feel like I was finally enough. "I'm just me," I whispered. "That's what terrifies me," he replied. The next morning, things grew even more complicated. A letter arrived by courier, sealed with a golden crest I recognized instantly. My heart dropped. It was from the Al-Rashid family, the very same investors I had helped Dylan secure. But this letter wasn't business. It was personal. It was addressed to me. Inside was a note written in flowing Arabic script, polite yet sharp. "We know who you are, Emily. Secrets never stay buried. Perhaps it's time Dylan learns the truth too." My hands trembled as I clutched the paper. They knew. They knew about the past I had tried so hard to bury, the scandal that had destroyed my father's business, the whispers of betrayal in my family that I had run from when I came to this country. If Dylan found out, would he still trust me? Or would he see me as just another liability, another betrayal waiting to happen? That evening I tried to act normal, but my mind was unraveling. Dylan noticed, of course. He always did. "Something's wrong," he pressed, his tone firm but laced with worry. I shook my head, forcing a smile. "Just tired." But he didn't believe me. His eyes narrowed, searching mine. "Don't shut me out, Emily. Not you." And that was when the dam inside me cracked. I told him everything about my father's failed insurance claim, the debts that followed, the relatives who turned against us, the shame that haunted my family name. I confessed how I had come here to escape it all, to build a life for my son where no one knew the weight I carried. When I finished, I braced myself for rejection, for the look I had seen too many times before: disappointment, distrust, disgust. But Dylan didn't flinch. He simply reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "Your past doesn't scare me," he said quietly, "but hiding it does. Don't ever hide from me again." His words should have comforted me. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. Because secrets have a way of twisting themselves around your throat, and mine had only begun to surface. The very next day, the betrayal struck closer than I ever imagined. One of the maids, someone I had once called a friend, slipped a copy of the Al-Rashid letter into Dylan's assistant's hands. By noon, the whispers had spread like wildfire through the mansion staff, twisting into ugly rumors that I was a spy, that I had seduced Dylan for money, that I had planned this from the start. When I walked into the dining hall, the stares cut into me like knives. And when Dylan entered the room, silence fell. Every eye turned to him, waiting to see if he would cast me aside to protect himself. I held my breath, my chest tight with fear. Dylan stood at the head of the dining hall, his presence filling the room the way a storm clouds the sky before breaking. The whispers died instantly. Every servant, every assistant, every watchful eye waited for his verdict on me. I wanted to shrink, to disappear, but I forced myself to stand tall, even as my knees trembled. If he chose to abandon me now, I would not beg. I had begged enough in my life, begged Diego to stay when I was pregnant, begged landlords for one more week's rent, begged fate to give me something more than invisibility. Not this time. The air grew thick, then Dylan spoke. "Emily stays." His voice was steel ringing off the marble walls. "She is under my protection. Anyone who questions her loyalty will answer to me." Gasps rippled through the hall. My throat tightened, tears stinging behind my eyes. He hadn't just defended me, he had claimed me in front of everyone, dismantling their poisonous whispers with a single declaration. But even as relief surged through me, another emotion crept in: fear. Because protection from Dylan came with its own chains. The more he tied himself to me, the more powerful the enemies who would come to tear us apart. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window in my small apartment above the garage, staring at the city lights flickering in the distance. My phone buzzed. A message. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. "Do you really think he knows everything? Secrets don't stay buried? The truth always finds the light." My blood ran cold. The next days blurred into a haze of tension. Dylan threw himself into work, but I saw the cracks in his armor, his late nights, the shadows under his eyes, the way he checked his phone with an unease that mirrored my own. We didn't talk about the letter, or the rumors, or the whispers of betrayal that stalked me everywhere I went. Instead, we carried on as though nothing had changed, even though everything had. Until the gala. It was the annual Hayes Foundation Gala, a night where Dylan's mansion transformed into a palace of glittering gowns and expensive champagne. The city's elite crowded the halls, their laughter sharp, their eyes always watching. I wore a dress borrowed from my mother's shop, a simple black gown with a neckline too modest for the crowd, but it was mine. As I descended the grand staircase, I felt their stares, some curious, some cruel. I heard fragments of their whispers. "That's her, the cleaning lady. A pretty face, but dangerous. He'll drop her soon enough." But when I reached the bottom, Dylan was waiting. He offered his arm, his eyes unwavering, and for a moment the whispers faded. Yet beneath the glitter and music tension coiled like a serpent. Halfway through the evening, a man approached me. Tall, elegant, with a face I hadn't seen in years but would never forget. My Uncle Karim. I froze. Memories slammed into me. The shouting matches, the way he had spat on my father's name after the accident, the lies he had spread to strip us of what little dignity we had left. He had been the one to betray us most viciously, turning family into strangers. "Emily," he said smoothly, his voice dripping with false warmth. Or should I say Amina? "Did Dylan know your real name? Did he know what you left behind?" The world tilted. I struggled to breathe, my heart hammering as Dylan stepped closer, sensing the danger. My uncle leaned in, his words a dagger meant only for me. "Secrets always come due, and yours, my dear, will destroy him." I staggered back, my glass shattering on the marble floor. Heads turned, conversations stilled, and for the first time I felt the full weight of the storm that had been chasing me finally breaking open. The sound of glass shattering echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. Every head turned toward me, ladies clutching pearls, men narrowing their eyes, whispers rising like smoke. My hands trembled as shards of crystal sparkled at my feet, wine pooling across the marble like spilled blood. Dylan was at my side in an instant, his hand hovering near mine, but not quite touching, as if afraid that contact would break whatever fragile mask I still wore. "Emily," he said softly, but his eyes darted toward Karim, sharp as a blade. My uncle smiled, a predator savoring the chaos he had unleashed. "Ah, so you didn't tell him." His voice was louder now, pitched so the crowd could catch each poisonous word. "You didn't tell your millionaire savior who you really are." Heat rushed to my face. My lungs constricted, the room spinning as whispers rippled across the crowd. "Who is she really? What is he talking about?" Dylan straightened, his presence commanding. "Enough." His voice cut through the murmurs, a single word heavy with authority. But Karim only smirked, relishing every second of this public execution. "You see," he continued, turning to the nearest cluster of guests, "our Emily is no simple cleaner. She is Amina, my niece, a girl who abandoned her family in disgrace. Her father left us in debt and shame, and she ran." My throat burned. I wanted to scream that he was lying, that he was twisting the truth like he always had. But the words caught in my chest, because buried within his venom was a shard of truth I had run. I had left everything, my father's ruined legacy, my mother's tears, the suffocating walls of betrayal that had caved in on us. The ballroom pulsed with silence, all eyes turned to me, waiting, judging. I could feel Dylan beside me, tense as steel, torn between defending me and demanding the truth himself. And in that moment I realized I had a choice. I could hide again, bury myself under silence and shame, or I could rip the mask away and show them all who I was. My voice shook, but it carried. "Yes," I said, lifting my chin though my heart quaked. "I am Amina. I am the daughter of a man who was betrayed by his own blood, by this man you see before you. My father was left broken, our family destroyed, and when I realized my own uncle would rather bury us than help us, I left. I chose survival. I chose my son." Gasps swept the room. Karim's smug smile faltered just slightly. I turned to Dylan, my eyes burning with unshed tears. "I never wanted to deceive you. I wanted to leave that name buried because it carried only pain. But if my truth costs me this," my voice cracked and I forced the words through clenched teeth, "then so be it." The room blurred around me. I could hear the whispers rising again, the judgment, the disbelief. But all I saw was Dylan. His face unreadable, his silence louder than any shout. For one terrifying second, I thought he would step back, leave me stranded before this sea of wolves. Then slowly he reached for my hand. He laced his fingers with mine, steady and deliberate, and turned to the crowd. "You want the truth?" he said. his voice like thunder rolling across marble. Here it is, Emily or Amina is the reason I stand here tonight. She is the reason Hayes Enterprises thrives, the reason every deal you toast to exists. If any of you doubt her worth, then you doubt me. And I promise you doubt me at your own peril. The room erupted. Some applauded, some whispered harsher than before, but it didn't matter. Because in that moment he chose me, not the cleaner, not the ghost of a disgraced family, me. Karim's eyes narrowed, fury sparking as he realized his dagger had not struck its mark. But I knew him. I knew this was only the beginning. Because betrayal doesn't end with one public humiliation. It festers, it waits, and it strikes again when you least expect it. And I could feel in my bones that the worst was yet to come. The gala ended in chaos, guests leaving in clusters, their whispers trailing like smoke eyes darting between me and Dylan as though we were a scandal come to life. I barely breathed until the last of them slipped out into the night, leaving only the echo of their judgment behind. Dylan escorted me to his study, closing the heavy oak door with a sharp click. The silence pressed down like a weight, and for a moment he just looked at me. His gaze was unreadable storm and solace all at once. "You should have told me," he said finally, his voice low. Not angry, not cold, just tired. I was afraid, I admitted, my voice trembling. Afraid you'd see me the way they did. Afraid I'd lose everything the moment my past touched your world. My throat tightened as the tears threatened. I've lived my whole life running from shame that wasn't even mine to carry. And when I met you for once, I didn't want to be the girl with the broken family. I just wanted to be Emily. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he stepped forward, closing the space between us. "You are Emily, and Amina, and the strongest damn woman I've ever met. Don't you see? It's not the name that matters, it's the fire you carry." The dam broke. I sobbed, burying my face in his chest, as his arms wrapped around me, grounding me in a way I hadn't felt in years. For the first time since I was a child, I let myself be held not as a burden or a mistake, but as someone worthy of love. But love I knew would not silence Karim, and I was right. Days later he returned, this time not with whispers but with threats. He cornered me outside the community center where I volunteered, his smile thin and venomous. "You think Dylan will protect you forever? He doesn't know everything. He doesn't know what your father did with my money. He doesn't know how deep the betrayal runs. And when he finds out, he will cast you aside just like the rest of us." His words slithered into my mind, reigniting every doubt I thought I had buried. I wanted to scream at him, to claw the smugness from his face, but instead I stood tall. "You already took everything from my family once. You won't take this too." He leaned closer, his breath hot against my ear. "We'll see." That night, I confessed everything to Dylan. The debts, the ruined business, the tangled mess of betrayal that had torn my family apart. I braced myself for the end, for the silence that would confirm Karim's prophecy. But Dylan didn't flinch. He listened, every word sinking into him like a stone into water. And when I was done, he took my hand, his grip steady. "You've carried shame that was never yours to bear. But no more. We'll face this together." It was the first time in my life someone had chosen to stand with me instead of against me. Weeks later, at another public event, Dylan did what I never could. He told the truth. Not just about me, but about the way the world discards people like me, burying our worth under poverty, under prejudice, under betrayal. And when he spoke my name, Emily Parker, also known as Amina, it was not as a confession, but as a declaration. For the first time, my past did not chain me. It freed me. Karim vanished from our lives soon after, defeated not by scandal or revenge, but by the one thing he could never destroy: truth. And as for me, I found something I never thought I would. Not just love, but redemption. I was no longer the invisible cleaner, no longer the girl running from her name. I was a mother, a fighter, a woman who had clawed her way out of betrayal and built something new. I learned that revenge doesn't always come in grand gestures of destruction. Sometimes revenge is standing tall in the light after years of being forced into the shadows. Sometimes it is choosing love where others chose hate. Sometimes it is daring to live without apology. So if you are listening to my story, carrying wounds of your own, hear this: your past may shape you, but it does not own you. The people who betrayed you may have written the first chapters, but you hold the pen now. Write your ending with courage. And if this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, what truth have you carried in silence that deserves to be heard? Your voice matters just as mine does.